Greetings and welcome to TMH English News with me, Deletna Dawalko. As we move on to our headlines, over 1,000 victims of the Aksum massacre has been commemorated over 1 year. UN Special Advisor criticizes Ethiopian leaders for their irresponsible genocidal messages, and CSO's rights activists ask UN to prevent genocide from taking place in Ethiopia. Yesterday marked a year since the grisly massacre took place in the Orthodox Church holiest place of the city of Aksum. Tigray television reported that the prayer was held yesterday in Aksum to commemorate the more than 1,000 civilians that have been massacred in and around Aksum by the invading Eritrean soldiers. Eritrean troops went on a killing spree while the Ethiopian soldiers silently looked from the sides, and the killings took place for 3 days total. Temnit Bayru has more on this story.
Just a year ago, on November 28, 2020, on the day of the religiously significant holiday of St. Mary of Sion in Aksum, Eritrean troops would go on a rampage, killing innocent civilians on the streets, churches, and their homes. My younger brother, Alam Shawit Gabruhad, was killed in the massacres. He was an instructor at the university. He was at home the whole day. When he stepped out of the house, they came and killed him. He told them he was a civilian. Despite his pleas, they mercilessly killed him. Bodies of young victims were pulled out by carts for no offense of their making. The Eritrean army killed innocent civilians en masse. People dropped like leaves. The Eritrean troops knocked on the door very heavily. They opened it for them. Immediately they killed my son. When my daughter cried, they killed her too. I lost my 2 children, Lu'ul and Aziv. Their bodies were lying there for 3 days. We couldn't bury them. They are cruel. The picture there belongs to my younger brother who was killed, and the one holding the picture is my brother. He is also injured. The Eritrean soldiers would also deny the families the right to bury their bodies of their loved ones, leaving bodies on the streets on the ancient city for days. The Aksum massacre was so massive that some families lost 2 to 7 members. The killings were indiscriminate. The youth, children, women, religious fathers, and elders were summarily executed. A self-help association in Aksum yesterday commemorated the day of the Aksum massacre. The members also distributed aid to families of the victims. The joint investigation into human rights violations in Tigray by the UN High Commissioner for Human Rights and the Ethiopian Human Rights Commission never investigated the Aksum massacre. Amnesty International reported that between 19 and 29th of November 2020, Eritrean troops operating in the Ethiopian city of Aksum committed a series of human rights and humanitarian law violations, including the killing of hundreds of civilians.
We need justice. We need justice. We need justice. We never forget genocide in Aksum. We never forget genocide in Aksum.
Debretsion ገብረሚካኤል, Tigray president, calls on all Tigrayans to step up to the struggle and attain an upper hand on all fronts. The president made this remark in a message he conveyed to the people on the occasion of the 1-year anniversary of the start of the genocidal war against the people of Tigray. It is also said by doing that we can walk with our heads held high, he stated, and also added in his statement that last 1 year saw not only an untold atrocity and a genocide but perpetrated against the people of Tigray, but also a remarkable victory registered through relentless struggle. He said the people of Tigray have demonstrated unparalleled heroism by routing their internal and external enemies. Tigray President Debretsion ገብረሚካኤል urged the people to step up efforts to consummate the struggle, which is currently on its last stage. The Global Society of Tigray Scholars and Professionals denounced Addis Ababa University's warning to revoke academic degrees of individuals based on their political position. GSCS said it is extremely shocked by Addis Ababa University's recent politically motivated statement, and unprecedented threat to retroactively revoke the academic degrees of individuals deemed to be supporting specific political parties. Higher education institutions and universities, by design and mission, are supposed to be emblems of tolerance and centers of public discourse of diverse political opinions. In particular, Ethiopian higher institutions are also mandated to educate generations with diverse political and ethnic orientations without imposing any restrictions on their political and religious freedoms. Thus, the recent warning by AAU is contrary to its long-standing values and effort to basic human, political, and more importantly, intellectual rights. The fact that this is being implemented by Ethiopia's oldest university is heartbreaking and defies logic, GST said, while also adding that the threat is an also institutional travesty and that they're not even aware if the institution can legally revoke a hard-earned academic degree based on individuals' subsequent political opinions and inclinations. GSTC strongly denounces the statements, and they're urging the university leaders to immediately retract these political statements and preposterous threats. Calls to arms and violence, hate speech by irresponsible leaders are heading to Ethiopia to the risk of genocide, said by the UN Special Advisor on the Prevention of Genocide, Alice Wairimu Nidritu. She expressed grave concern on Friday about the deterioration of the situation in Ethiopia. This speech by irresponsible leaders, the militarization of society, ethnic profiling, denial of humanitarian access, and blockage of food to areas under fighting inhibited by specific ethnic communities and misuse of medical and supplies continue, she said. Nidritu said those leaders are spiraling the country down to a path where the risk of commission of atrocity crimes, including genocide, is real and must be addressed as a matter of utmost urgency. The special advisor called on the regional and international actors to intensify their engagement to prevent falling into this abyss. 64 civil society organizations and personalities at the weekend asked that the Secretary General of the United Nations, Mr. Antonio Guterres, take urgent measures to prevent imminent genocide in Ethiopia. Under the leadership of Guterres, according to CSOs, the UN does not appear to have taken any lesson from the Rwandan genocide to heart, and that the world would be auditioning for another preventable genocide to take place in Ethiopia. They expressed these concerns in a letter to the UN Secretary Antonio Guterres, dated on the 26th of November, titled, "Concerning the Need to Take Urgent Action to Prevent Genocide in Ethiopia." If failed to take much needed action and measures, the letter said, "We believe that the genocide is likely to happen under your watch as the Secretary General, which will be a blot not merely on your record in that capacity, but also a collective humanity at this time." To avert the imminent genocide, the letter urged that the UN strive to work with the international community of the Red Cross to make inventories of all intermittent centers in Ethiopia and ensure access, monitoring, and oversight of conditions therein by the ICRC. According to the letter, if Addis Ababa should come under the threat of falling to the armed opposition army, the internees, wherever they're held, would under current conditions be liable to be exterminated. This is easily foreseeable, and it can also be preventable, the letter said. The CSOs that signed the letter include Africa Center for Open Governance, African Initiative for Peace Building, Advocacy and Advancement, Nigeria, African Union Watch, Banjul, Cameroon Women's Peace Movement, Center for Democracy and Development Nigeria, and the Coalition for an Effective African Court on Human and Their Peoples. Andargacho Tsage, who was released from death row in Ethiopia after a high-profile British government lobbying effort, has been accused of telling soldiers to carry out genocide in the East African nation's bloody war. Tsage urged soldiers to resort to the most savage of cruelties in a speech seen by the Telegraph. He's quoted saying, "I tell you, you must not hesitate from resorting to the most barbaric of cruelties when you face them," he said, referring to the ethnically Tigrayan opposition army that is advancing on the capital of Addis Ababa. "You must be merciless, you must act beyond what our Amhara or Ethiopian cultural values permit." And Tsage, a top government advisor dressed in army fatigues, yelled at a cheering crowd, which included armed fighters. Andarkajo Tsage inflammatory rhetoric comes at a time when ethnic Tigrayans are allegedly being rounded up into concentration camps and murdered. It has been widely interpreted as a call to kill Tigrayan civilians. It is a genocide incitation against Tigrayans. It adds to the list of similar public incitements by the public figures of the regime in Addis Ababa, said by Mahari Tadelemaru, a professor at the European University Institute in Florence. What is more baffling is the international community's, including UK's and US, silence to genocidal incitement and war by their nationals, Mahari Tadela noted. According to ABC News in America, since the start of the November, the US government is considering designing and designating the Ethiopian Federal Army atrocities in the northern Tigray region over the last year as a genocide. Sudan says several troops killed by Ethiopian forces along the border. And Sudan Army said Saturday several soldiers have been killed and attacked by armed groups and militias linked to the Ethiopian military in a disputed fertile border region. Relations between Khartoum and Addis Ababa have soared over Al-Fashqa, a border zone along cultivated by Ethiopia's farmers claimed by Sudan. Our forces tasked with securing the harvest in Al-Fashqa were attacked by groups of Ethiopian army forces and militia who sought to intimidate farmers and spoil their harvests, Sudan's armed forces said in a statement. Sudanese troops repelled the attack and inflicted heavy loss in lives and equipment on the Ethiopian side, it said. Chief of Staff, Ethiopian Army, General Berhanu Jula, said Ethiopia is in no posture to confront Sudan while it is engaged in fighting against Tigrayan forces. That wraps up our news for today. Thank you so much for tuning in. Goodbye.